Dear young ladies, I hope that you are doing great. Today, I would start with English second paper and I'm going to work with preposition. As you know that preposition is a kind of parts of speech, so without knowing preposition it is impossible to write any sentence correctly. So it is very important for you to listen to the lecture very carefully and you have to try to write down the slides information in your notebook. If we start with preposition, we would need, actually in my case, I think I would need almost 3 classes to cover them in a slight way. So this would be my first class with preposition. Okay, now let's start the class. If we look at the name of the parts of speech preposition, it would obviously give us a little bit of hint about its work or about its placement. Like preposition. Pre means before, position means placement. So it is telling us that it sits before something. So yes, in the definition we are having that information. Just look at the slide. In a sentence, it sits before noun or pronoun and then it connects that noun or pronoun with the rest of the part of the sentence. So it works as a connector or linker, or we can say that in a nice way that a preposition is something that glue a sentence together with the parts of the sentence. They do this by expressing position and movement, possession, time, and how an action is completed. Indeed, several of the most frequently used words in all of English, such as of, to, for, with, on, and at, are prepositions. Explaining prepositions can seem complicated, but they are a common part of language, and most of us use them naturally without thinking much about it. And it is important to learn for that reason because without them, it is impossible to write a complete and perfect sentence. Now, here is a list of regularly used single word preposition. As because we have single word preposition, double word preposition, phrasal preposition. Today I'm going to start with single word preposition and there is a list which is actually including almost 100 single word prepositions. I want you to memorize this list and I want that you would write them in your notebook and make it done. Okay, don't keep it aside. Okay, now let's go for the next slide. Most of the prepositions have many uses, and because of that, it seems bit complicated. But if we try to deal with them in a processed way, then it would be less complicated and more easier. Here, we are going to divide prepositions in 4 ways. They are prepositions of place or direction, prepositions of time, prepositions of essence or things, phrasal prepositions. They are according to the function of preposition. Today, I'm going to focus on prepositions of place or direction. In this slide, we are having the definition of prepositions of place and we are having the examples of those prepositions who are working as prepositions of place. And we are having few examples also. Let's look at the slide. Yes, that means prepositions of place are actually sitting before placement things or direction thing and they to connect that place or direction impression to the rest of the part of the sentence. And what are these preposition of place? They are on, at, in, by, from. Here is a long list of these prepositions. You have to memorize these preposition. Okay. Now look at the example, what the example is saying us. In first example, we see that he is at home. Here, At is a preposition of place because it is sitting before home. Home is a place and at is connecting that home or noun with the previous part of the sentence. Here, at is working as a connector or linker or joining word. So, we are going to deal with this preposition of place step by step in next slides. Let's divide preposition of place and direction into more subcategories. First, those preposition of place which are having movement or motion related with expression. And other is just about location and placement without the sense of movement or motion. In this slide, we are having first category preposition of place and direction, which are giving us expression of movement or motion. Who they are? They are round, along, from, past, to, up, down, through, from, out of, over, across. Look at the picture. What are they doing? They are walking along the street. They're walking on a line. They're walking on a line. Okay? So here we're going to use along. Now across. Look at the picture here. Second one. Pay attention to these people. A father and his kids. They are walking across the street. They are walking from one side to the other side of the street. So they're walking across the street. Let's look at the slide here. First one we are having round. And now look at the picture. What they're doing? They're running round the field. When something is happening in a motion of circular way, then we do use the preposition round. Now next picture is related with the preposition past. She is walking past a shop with her friend. She is walking past a shop and she is walking in a direction that passed in front of a shop. So these kind of prepositions are indicating motion, movement in a particular way. Try to remember them, try to remember the picture related with that. And I'm saying again and again to you that try to write down all these informations, examples in your notebook as a class lecture, as because you are not going to get these clips always in front of your eyes and it's not possible. So make a lecture sheet out of this slide. Here we are having three more prepositions which are also used for movement or motion, and they're also in the group of prepositions of place and direction. They are up, down, and through. We use up when there is a sense of movement from lower to a higher place or location. We are having an example here. He is walking up the stairs. He is walking up the stairs. Look at the picture. There is an orange arrow towards the upwards from the low position to the high position. That means from a lower to a higher place. That time we are going to use up. There would be a sense of movement here. And the opposite happens with down. Look at the example. He is walking down the stairs. We are having a red arrow. We are having a red arrow towards the downward position. When something or someone or the movement is from a higher to a lower place or location, in that case we do use down. Same way here we are also having sense of motion or movement. Now through. They are cycling through the tunnel. That means uh, these two are getting in one side and get out the opposite of the tunnel. When something or someone get in one side and get out the opposite, in that case we do use through. That means this is also involved in motion, movement. Okay. In this slide, we are having four prepositions. They are also included in movement or motion related preposition. Now look at the sky blue circle. Take this circle as our classroom. Suppose we are having our regular classes in classroom, and at the time of my lecture, one or two of you have done something very odd, and I became angry. And then I asked you to go outside from the class. Then what I would say? I would say, get out of the class. You were inside or in the classroom. Now you are going outside. So, when someone or something is going from inside to outside, then we use out of. Now, after passing 10 minutes, I have felt that you have had enough punishment. I would ask you to come inside. How would I do that? I would say, okay, now come into the classroom. That means when someone or something is coming from outside to inside, then we have to use into. Now, to and from. In case of to and from, place is fixed or the location is fixed. When my destination is given or fixed, then I would use to. Like, I'm going to college. Here my destination is college and that is given and fixed. And when my starting point of journey or my starting point of anything is given, then I would use from. Like, I'm going from Dhaka to Chittagong. My starting point is Dhaka and my destination is Chittagong. For that reason, I'm using from before Dhaka and to before Chittagong. Now let's look at on, over, above. These are another group of prepositions which are confusing when we are trying to use them in case of upwards position. So let's try to look what they are trying to say us. First of all, if we look at on is a preposition that is talking about something when there is something and that thing is actually touching other thing when two nouns are touching each other on the surface. Like the picture, the cat is on the table. The cat is on the table. Table is a noun and cat is another noun. These two nouns are touching each other on the surface. We can replace that cat with a book. We can say that the book is on the table. When there is a touch in between these two things, we have to use on, not over, not above. Clear? Okay. Now, what about over? Where we are going to use over? Now look at the picture again. There is a bird flying from one side to another, or that is flying, and in that case of vertical length from the table, I can say that the bird is flying over the table. When there is a height, we do take about the distance and we have that distance. In that case of vertical height, we can use over. So in that case, we're going to use the bird is flying over the table or over the cat. But can we use above here? No, we cannot. As because above is something where you are going to get the horizontal level of something. That means it talks about things which are spreaded. Then we take level in that case. It indicates no movement. Above indicates no movement. So we are not going to use above here. Am I clear? Like the sky is above our head. The sky is something we do look which is above horizon, which is spreading horizontally, and that is above our head, and there is no sign of movement there. Okay, but what happens about over? Let's review again. About over, we would have movement. Okay, it can have movement or it may not have, but in both case we can use over. But there is something very common that you do have to remember, that in that case you would have a horizontal length, sorry, vertical length, not horizontal length. Above is for horizontal spreading and over is for vertical height. Am I clear? Okay, now so we can say that on would be on that place when there would be touch in between two things, and over would be for vertical height and where there would be movement or not, and for horizontal leveling from the height we are going to use above. Okay, I hope that you understood. Now here we are having few prepositions which are not related with motion or movement. They just indicate placement or position, like in. Look at the first one, in. The ball is in the box. When something is in the middle or in between or inside something, in that case we do use in. Next one, on. The ball is on the box. We have already talked about on. When something is touching the surface of another thing, then we are going to use on. Here the ball is touching the surface of the box. For that reason, we are using on. Third one, under. As because that is under a three-dimensional box, for that reason, we are using that the ball is under the box. And after the box, we can see here the ball. So we can use the expression next to. The ball is next to the box. Here, the ball is just behind the box. The box is in front and the ball is behind. When something is in front and some other thing is after that, then we indicate that as behind. The opposite is here in front of. The ball is here in front of the box. And here we are having two boxes, and in the middle of these two boxes we are having the ball. So we are using between. Okay, these are the prepositions of place and direction indicating placement, not movement. Okay, now we would go for a pair which are in a kind, actually which are confusing, as because we have a notion about those two, but they are not only used in that kind of way, like between and among. I'm going to talk about that in next slide. Now let us go for that common confusion about between and among, as because most of us already familiar with the rule that between should be used for two things, while among for more than two things, like three or more than three. But this is not the only rule. Let's talk about these prepositions. Between is a preposition, and it could be used in two ways actually, not just that they used in between two things. First, it used when we talk about two items. It could be a person, place, or a thing. That will we know. Like example, is the tension between the two over? Number two, my little sister can choose between hamburger and pizza. Number three, do you know the difference between the words pretty and beautiful? Here I'm using between as because I'm having two items. It's okay, this is not wrong, but this is not the only rule about between. Let's go for the second one. Between can be used also when we talk about more than two things, as long as they are distinct and individual items. Like, is the tension between Deepak, Ronnie, and Hisham over? Notice carefully. that we are using between here even we are talking about three persons like Deepak, Ronnie and Hisham. Why we're using here between? We're using this because here these three are distinct and individual item. Like, let me make it clear by next example. My little sister can decide between hamburger, pizza, spaghetti, and fries. Here I'm actually again using between as because the items are distinct and individual. Let's go for the third one. Do you know the differences between the words see, look, and watch? These are also three individual events. Am I clear? Okay, it would be more clear when we'd go for the next one. That means when we'd go for among, use of among. Okay, among is used when we talk about things that are distinct or things that belong in a group. We do use among about the things that belong in a group. For example, I can choose among these flowers. They're all beautiful. Look, we use among here because flowers are in one group. It was not individually stated. Am I clear? They are not individually stated. We are just talking about flowers. Okay. Actually, choosing among these five amazing. Let us go for the second example. Choosing among these five amazing singers is very difficult job. Here am I using among as because I'm talking about a group of singers. Five singers are making a group. They are not individually stated. We are not having their actually individual names. If we had their names separately individually, we would use yes, we would use between them as because we don't have their individual identification here. We are going to use among here. We are going to treat them as a group. I think you got the idea. Okay. On at. These three are most tricky prepositions and most used also. They are used in prepositions of place, prepositions of time simultaneously, but they have some pattern. We have to locate that pattern to take them in our grab or our hold. Now look at this slide very carefully. Let's start from the bottom of this triangle. The orange part, here I have placed at. Why? Because at is used for smallest location or area or place. That means we can use at for specific location like the store, the college, the station. At is also used before writing address, which also indicates very specific location like 434 Oxford Street or like the address of our house like 4 by 32 Rankin Street, Jamshednagar, etc. Sometimes at indicates comparatively small place. That means there would be comparison in between two places. And when the smallest one would be there, at would sit before that. Like we use in, actually usually we use in before Dhaka city. But if we have to use Dhaka in comparison with Bangladesh, then we have to use at before Dhaka. We have to use at like I live at Dhaka in Bangladesh. Here we cannot use we live in Dhaka in Bangladesh as because we are having Dhaka. Here Dhaka is comparatively smaller than Bangladesh. For that reason we have to use at before Dhaka. After that we are having on, and on is holding bit larger location, the red location. Actually this is larger than at. That means at is smallest, on would be smaller. On deals with specific location but bit larger Then at, like on, sits before streets, avenues, and streets, avenues are larger area than home or specific small location. Next, the topmost part of the bigger part or the bigger part is blue, and the blue is having in. In sits before larger or the bigger place, like that I have started from neighborhood because I'm going from downwards to upwards. I have started with neighborhood, which is larger than street, and gradually from neighborhood to city, and from city to country, country to continent, continent to subcontinent. Gradually, when the place would be larger, the larger areas we would have in before those larger areas. Now we would start with preposition of place and direction, and I'm taking four preposition as example as because these four are so much close with the meaning, like beneath, below, underneath, under. And what happens when we have these four, we cannot decide which one we are going to pick because in Bangla all of them are meaning niche. So we have to decide what to use where, and for that reason, we have to know few rules and regulations. Let's see what they are. Now look at the slide. In first example, we are watching that there is a picture of a tree, and actually the example is saying that they sat under a tree. Now listen very carefully. When there would be any three-dimensional thing, I say three-dimensional thing, and something is in downward position of that three-dimensional thing, then we are going to use under. So here we are going to use under. They sat under a tree. They sat under the shadow of the tree. Okay, like we can say that the cat is under a table. The cat is under the table. The cat is under the sofa, or the cat is under the bed. Here, the table, the sofa, the bed, all these things are three-dimensional thing. In this case, we are going to use under. Okay. Now, look at the example number 2. There is a picture of a boy who is wearing a t-shirt and a jacket. Okay, and we are having the sentence like, I have a t-shirt under my jacket. The condition here is that when there would be layers of things, we are going to use under to indicate one after another. Like I'm wearing a t-shirt, I'm also wearing a jacket. And if I want to mention the placement, I have to use under. So when there would be layers of things, we are going to use under. Okay. Now, number 3, I can raise under 15,000 taka when there is direction about number in downwards. That can be about money, that can be about age, that can be about temperature, but which is related with number, and that number is indicating downward place or direction, that time we can use under. Here I said I can raise under 50,000 taka. 15,000 taka. Okay, now last one. This group is under a lot of stress. Here, stress is indicating mental condition, mental pressure, or psychological situation. And when the situation is in bad, that means in downward position, we can say that we can use under here. Okay, like she's in lot of psychological pressure, then we can use she's under psychological pressure or she's under stress. Am I clear? Okay. Below can be used in different situations, which would also indicate downward position or downward place or direction. Now let's look at these different ideas about using below. Look at the first example. The red photo is below the black one. Now look at the sky blue thing here. Suppose this is a sky blue wall and I am hanging a black photo and a red photo. I could have used under here to express that the red photo is under the black photo, but I have not used that. Why? As because, listen carefully, as because this is actually indicating two things on same pen or same level or same surface. If the wall is a surface, the black photo and the red photo, they both are staying on the same pen or same surface. For that reason, I have to pick below, not under. If I want to say that the photo is, if for example if it was the table, and if I had a red photo under the table, I couldn't say that there is a red photo below the table because table is a three-dimensional thing and so we have to use under. But as because the photos and the wall they are on same pen, same level or same surface, for that reason in this case I have to use below. Okay, keep in mind. Same thing can we use for blackboard, wall, or surface, floor, or any same level of thing. When something is staying on same level, in that case we're going to use below. Now, example number 2. The temperature has dropped below freezing tonight. In previous slide we have seen that I said that for number we can use under when that is in downward position, and I also mentioned when that is talking about temperature. But yes, here I'm using below. Why not under? And I'm using temperature. Why I'm using below? As because this is not actually indicating certain number about temperature. This is talking about freezing point or freezing level of the temperature. That means a level, a scale, talking about scale, not about number, not about a particular temperature. For that reason, we're going to use below here. Number 3, when we are having informations and questions and there is a condition that I need to consider few things before starting my work or before starting my exam, I have to know something, I have to consider something, I have to read something. In that situation, we do use below, like this example number 3. Read the instructions below before you start. Okay, I think it is clear for you. Now it's time for beneath. We can use beneath in place of under also, but it can be used in a particular way. Let's look how we can use beneath. Okay, look at the first example and the first picture here. There is a boy sleeping under a blanket. I said under, and I can also use beneath, and it would be more appropriate here. He slept beneath the blanket. Actually, when something is covering something, that means being covered by something in that place, it is better to use beneath. We can also use under here, it is not wrong, but beneath is more perfect. Okay, now go for the next one. When we are talking about emotion, something imaginary situation about human feelings, emotion, their action, what we are thinking about in our mind, which is not actually present in front of us, in that case, we can use beneath to indicate downward position or downward direction. Like, there is a sad face beneath the happy face. There is a sad face beneath the happy face. These are all imaginary things, but we are thinking that there is a sad face under his happy face. In this kind of situation, when we are talking about emotion, when we are talking about this imaginary kind of situation or feelings, in that case, we can use beneath. Okay, now number 3. When we are talking about our principles or dignity level and someone is trying to take us below that, under that in that case we are not going to use below or under, we are going to use beneath. When someone is trying to take us to the downward position from our own principal state or our own dignified state, in that case we are going to use beneath. Okay. Like, accepting bribe is beneath my level. I'm having a principle or level of honesty or dignity which is not allowing me to take any bribe. And if you are trying to give me bribe, that is actually taking me downwards and I cannot accept that. Okay, that is the situation. For today's lecture, I have one more interesting thing for you. Like, we do have a common confusion or tension about using preposition for ending a sentence. Because from definition, we have learned that it says before noun or pronoun. So it always pokes our mind that there should be a noun or pronoun after preposition. A preposition cannot be the end word or last word. And always, for most of the time, for avoiding that scenario, we do make awkward sentences. So let's try to figure out how to resolve this problem, as because there are few rules for ending for ending sentence with preposition. Now look at this slide. We are having few examples where we can use preposition at the end. First one, what area of research is she interested in? Actually, when we are beginning a sentence with who, what, where, in that case, we can use in at the end of the sentence. Number 2, we are having 2 examples here. Look very carefully. She had nothing to think about. We are finishing our sentence with preposition about. And the second one, he had no music to listen to. We are finishing the sentence with to. You may have the question that we are having another preposition here, to think, to listen. Yes, they are also preposition, but here they're working as infinitive structures. They're working as infinitive structures, and when we are having this kind of infinitive structure, we can use preposition after that and we can end sentence like that. Infinitive structures or when the verb is left in its basic form, like to swim, to contemplate, to walk, to dance. In that case, we can end the sentence with preposition. Number 3, she was excited about the responsibility that she was taking on. Here, relative clauses or a clause starting with the pronoun who, that, which, whose, where, when. In that case, we can also use preposition at the end. I'm repeating again. Relative clauses or a clause starting with the pronoun who, that, which, whose, where, or when. In that case, we can finish the sentence with preposition. Number 4, Look at the example. She liked being sick because then she was taken care of. Okay, most of us like to do that sometimes. Okay, now why we are having, what is the rule here? The rule is that passive structures or when the object of a sentence is being acted upon by the verb rather than doing the verb's action. What I said? Look at the sentence. She liked being sick because then she was taken care of. This is a passive structure. Or when the subject of a sentence is being acted upon by the verb rather than doing the verb's action. Clear? Okay. Now, number 5, or the last one. When I was having a bad day, my sister told me to cheer up. This is actually the case of phrasal verbs or verb that consist of multiple words, including a preposition. Like she needs to log on, needs to log on, to log on. Phrasal verbs. We can end sentences with phrasal verbs or verbs that consist of multiple words. I hope that you would try to memorize all these events because this is very important. And afterwards, in next lecture, I'm going to deal with preposition of time and the rest of the thing. And at the end of this lecture, you would have exercises. Try to answer them and try to make a beautiful lecture sheet out of this whole class lecture. Thank you very much for being with me. This is your exercise. You have to fill in the gaps with appropriate prepositions from these exercises. Here you are having 11 sentences with blanks. Try to do them. This is another worksheet. You have to do 4 categories of questions here. First one, choose the right option. Second one, true or false. Third one, complete with the right preposition. And last one, multiple choice. For reference, you have to look at the pictures. I know that you are trying your best with your studies, and I do believe that. But I have a small suggestion for you, that is, you should spend fixed and regular hours for your studies. Our blessings are always with you. Stay happy and healthy.